Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Trapped and defenseless, so we unleashed what they fear most, a human. In a distant corner of the galaxy, the Vanner had built a peaceful society on their verdant homeworld of Aloria. For centuries, they had pursued lives of harmony, guided by the wisdom of their leader, Counselor Zorl. However, their tranquil existence was shattered when the ruthless Krator Empire set its sights on Aloria's bountiful resources. The Krator's warships darkened the skies over Aloria's gleaming cities, raining down destruction and chaos. The Vanner, unaccustomed to violence, found themselves outmatched by the Krator's advanced weaponry and merciless tactics. As the invaders tightened their grip on the planet, Zorl knew that time was running out for his people. In an act of desperation, Zorl turned to an ancient Vanner legend, a story of a powerful device hidden deep beneath the surface of Aloria, capable of summoning help from beyond the stars. With a heavy heart, Zorl led a small group of his most trusted advisors on a perilous journey into the planet's underbelly. They fought their way past Krator patrols and navigated treacherous tunnels until they reached a cavernous chamber housing the legendary device. It was a portal, a gateway to other worlds and universes. Zorl hesitated for a moment, knowing that activating the portal could bring untold consequences, but with his people facing extinction, he saw no other choice. The counselor stepped forward and placed his hand on the portal's control panel. It thrummed to life, emitting an eerie glow that filled the chamber. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from the portal, accompanied by a deafening roar. Zorl shielded his eyes as a figure emerged from the light, a being unlike any the Vanner had ever seen. Captain Liam Hawkins, a decorated officer of the Earth-Space Alliance, found himself ripped from his own universe and deposited on an alien world. Disoriented and confused, he drew his sidearm and scanned his surroundings, trying to make sense of the strange situation. Zorl approached the human cautiously, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Please lower your weapon," the counselor said, his voice translated by a small device on his collar. "We mean you no harm. I am Counselor Zorl of the Vanner, and we desperately need your help." Liam eyed the counselor warily, his grip tightening on his weapon. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. "Where am I and how did I get here?" Zorl explained the Vanner's plight and the purpose of the portal. He spoke of the Krator's relentless assault on Aloria and the Vanner's dwindling hopes for survival. As Liam listened, he began to understand the gravity of the situation. "I know we have no right to ask for your aid," Zorl said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But you are our last hope. Will you stand with us against the Krator and help us save our world?" Liam pondered the counselor's words, his mind racing with the implications of this unexpected mission. He had sworn an oath to protect the innocent and defend the defenseless regardless of their origin. He looked into Zorl's eyes and saw the desperation and hope that lurked within. "All right," Liam said, holstering his weapon. "I'll help you, but we're going to do this my way. If we're going to beat these Krator bastards, we need to think outside the box and hit them where they least expect it." Zorl nodded, a glimmer of hope reigniting in his heart. "Thank you, Captain Hawkins. Your arrival has given us a chance to turn the tide of this war. Together, we will show the Krator the true strength and resilience of the Vanner and the power of humanity." And so an unlikely alliance was forged in the depths of Aloria, a partnership between a peaceful alien race and a battle-hardened human soldier. Together, they would face the might of the Krator Empire and fight for the survival of an entire world. As Liam and Zorl emerged from the underground chamber, the human soldier got his first glimpse of the devastation wrought by the Krator invasion. The once gleaming cities of Aloria lay in ruins, their towers toppled and streets choked with debris. Smoke billowed from countless fires, casting an eerie pall over the landscape. Liam's heart ached for the suffering of the Vanner people, but his tactical mind was already assessing the situation, looking for weaknesses in the Krator's defenses. Zorl led him to a hidden Vanner stronghold, where the remnants of the planet's defense forces had gathered to regroup and plan their next move. At first, the Vanner soldiers were wary of the human in their midst. They had never encountered a being like Liam before, and his strange appearance and unfamiliar weapons made them uneasy. However, as Zorl introduced him and explained his mission, the Vanner began to see a glimmer of hope in the human's presence. Liam, too, was initially distrustful of his new allies. He had fought alongside many species during his time with the Earth-Space Alliance, but the Vanner were unlike any he had encountered before. Their technologies and customs were alien to him, and he struggled to find common ground. Despite their differences, Liam and the Vanner knew they had to work together if they hoped to defeat the Crador. They spent long hours poring over maps and intelligence reports, trying to identify weaknesses in the enemy's defenses. Liam's knowledge of unconventional warfare and the Vanners' intimate understanding of their own world began to merge into a cohesive strategy. The first test of their new alliance came when they received word of a vital Crador supply depot located on the outskirts of a ruined city. If they could destroy the depot, it would deal a significant blow to the invaders' ability to sustain their occupation. Liam and a hand-picked team of Vanner soldiers set out on a daring raid, using the cover of night to slip past Crador patrols. As they approached the depot, they encountered a heavily fortified perimeter bristling with advanced weaponry. The Vanner soldiers faltered, their confidence shaken by the sight of the Crador's defenses, but Liam refused to back down. He had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. With a few terse commands, he rallied the Vanner and devised a plan of attack that relied on speed, surprise, and misdirection. Under Liam's guidance, the Vanner struck swiftly and decisively. They used their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the Crador sentries, while Liam's tactical expertise allowed them to exploit gaps in the enemy's defenses. In a whirlwind of fire and fury, they stormed the depot, planting explosive charges at key structural points. As the charges detonated, the depot erupted in a massive fireball that lit up the night sky. The Crador forces were thrown into disarray, their supplies and equipment reduced to smoldering ruins. Liam and the Vanner team fought their way out of the chaos, their weapons blazing as they cut down any Crador who dared stand in their way. In the aftermath of the raid, the Vanner soldiers looked upon Liam with newfound respect and admiration. His bravery and ingenuity had saved countless lives and struck a powerful blow against the Crador. Zoril, too, was impressed by the human's performance. He saw in Liam a kindred spirit, a warrior who would stop at nothing to protect the innocent and defend the weak. As word of the victory spread throughout the Vanner resistance, a new sense of hope began to take root. For the first time since the invasion began, the Vanner dared to believe that they could win this war. And at the heart of that hope stood a single human soldier, a shining beacon of courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. But the battle was far from over. The Crador would not take this defeat lightly, and Liam knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous. Still, as he looked into the faces of his Vanner comrades, he saw a glimmer of the same indomitable spirit that had carried humanity through its darkest hours. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their resolve to save Eloria and its people from the clutches of the Crador Empire. News of the daring raid on the Crador supply depot spread like wildfire through the Vanner resistance. Stories of the mysterious alien warrior who fought alongside the Vanner soldiers became the stuff of legend, whispered in secret meetings and passed from one rebel cell to another. The Crador too began to take notice of this strange new threat, their commanders growing increasingly unsettled by reports of a fearless, unpredictable enemy who seemed to appear and disappear at will. For Liam and the Vanner, the success of the raid was a much-needed boost to morale. It proved that the Crador were not invincible and that victory, however distant, was possible. Emboldened by their triumph, they began to plan even more audacious strikes against the invaders, targeting key infrastructure and supply lines. Under Liam's guidance, the Vanner resistance adopted new tactics and strategies, inspired by the humans' unconventional approach to warfare. They learned to strike fast and hard, using the element of surprise to their advantage. They employed guerrilla tactics, sabotage, and misdirection to keep the Crador off balance and disrupt their operations. As the resistance grew bolder and more effective, the Crador's grip on Eloria began to weaken. The invaders found themselves stretched thin, their forces constantly on the defensive as they struggled to contain the growing insurgency. Warlord Krax, the ruthless leader of the Crador Empire, grew increasingly volatile and unpredictable as reports of his army's failures reached his ears. In a fit of rage, Krax ordered his forces to double down on their assault, unleashing a wave of terror and brutality upon the Vanner population. Cities were razed to the ground, innocent civilians were rounded up and executed, and entire regions were subjected to orbital bombardment. The Crador's cruelty knew no bounds, and the suffering of the Vanner people reached new heights. Liam and Zoril knew that they had to act fast to prevent the complete annihilation of the Vanner. They hatched a plan to strike at the heart of the Crador occupation, the heavily fortified command ship that served as Warlord Krax's base of operations on Eloria. The plan was risky, bordering on suicidal. The command ship was a floating fortress, protected by layers of advanced shielding and bristling with enough firepower to level a city. But Liam and Zorl knew that if they could take out Krax and his top lieutenants, it would throw the Krator forces into disarray and give the resistance a fighting chance. To pull off the impossible, they assembled an elite strike team composed of the most skilled and daring Vanner soldiers, handpicked by Liam himself. For weeks, they trained in secret, honing their skills and familiarizing themselves with the layout of the Krator command ship. Liam shared every trick and tactic he had learned during his years of service, pushing his team to their limits and beyond. As the day of the mission approached, tensions ran high. The strike team knew that the fate of their world rested on their shoulders. They had one shot at this, one chance to strike a decisive blow against the Krator and turn the tide of the war. Under the cover of darkness, the team infiltrated the command ship, using stolen Krator codes and disguises to slip past security. They moved silently through the corridors, dispatching sentries with quick, brutal efficiency. Liam led the way, his senses heightened by adrenaline and years of combat experience. As they neared the bridge, where Warlord Krax and his top officers were believed to be located, the team encountered fierce resistance. Krator soldiers poured into the corridors, their weapons blazing as they sought to halt the intruders' advance. Liam and his team fought back with everything they had, their weapons flashing in the dim light as they cut through the enemy ranks. Explosions rocked the ship as the battle raged on, alarms blaring and emergency lights flickering. The strike team pushed forward inch by bloody inch, their determination fueled by the knowledge that failure was not an option. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to let the Krator win now. As they finally reached the doors to the bridge, Liam paused for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked back at his team, their faces etched with grim determination and unwavering resolve. They nodded to him, ready to follow him into the jaws of hell itself. With a deep breath, Liam kicked open the doors and charged onto the bridge, his weapon raised and ready. The sight that greeted him was one of chaos and confusion. Krator officers scrambled for cover, barking orders and frantically trying to assess the situation. And there, at the center of it all, stood Warlord Krax himself, his eyes widening in surprise and rage as he saw the human soldier leading the charge. In that moment, Liam knew that the fate of Eloria and perhaps the entire galaxy would be decided here, on this very bridge. He steeled himself for the fight of his life, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For he was not just a soldier, but a living embodiment of the indomitable human spirit, a force that would not be denied in its quest for justice and freedom. The stage was set for a final, desperate showdown between the forces of tyranny and oppression and the unyielding power of human determination. And as Liam and his team charged forward to meet their destiny, they carried with them the hopes and dreams of an entire world, ready to fight to the last breath for a future free from the shadow of the Krator Empire. As Liam and his Vanner strike team stormed onto the bridge of the Krator command ship, they were met with a hail of weapons fire. The Krator officers, caught off guard by the sudden intrusion, quickly regrouped and formed a defensive perimeter around Warlord Krax. The air crackled with energy as blaster bolts crisscrossed the room, scorching the walls and consoles. Liam dove for cover behind a command station, his mind racing as he assessed the situation. The Krator were well-armed and well-trained, but they lacked the adaptability and inventiveness that had served the humans so well in previous engagements. He knew that to win this battle, he would have to rely on his wits as much as his weapons. With a series of hand signals, Liam directed his team to fan out and flank the enemy positions. The Vanner soldiers moved with precision and grace, their movements honed by months of training under Liam's guidance. They used the ship's own structure to their advantage, ducking behind support columns and maintenance hatches to avoid the Krator's fire. As the battle raged on, Liam caught sight of Warlord Krax, his face contorted with rage and hatred. The Krator leader was barking orders to his subordinates, urging them to crush the intruders with overwhelming force. Liam knew that he had to confront Krax directly if he hoped to end this war once and for all. With a burst of speed, Liam vaulted over his cover and charged towards the warlord, his weapon blazing. Krax saw him coming and roared in defiance, drawing his own blaster and firing a barrage of shots at the human. Liam twisted and dodged, his reflexes honed by years of combat, and closed the distance between them. The two warriors clashed in a flurry of blows, their weapons forgotten as they grappled with each other hand to hand. Krax was stronger and more heavily armored, but Liam was faster and more agile. They traded punches and kicks, each seeking to gain the upper hand. As they fought, Krax taunted Liam, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think you can defeat me, human?" he snarled. "I have conquered 100 worlds, crushed 1,000 species beneath my heel. What makes you think you can stand against the might of the Krator Empire?" Liam gritted his teeth and redoubled his efforts, his muscles straining with the effort. "I stand against you because it's the right thing to do," he said, his voice steady and clear. "Because no one, no matter how powerful, has the right to enslave and oppress others, and because I believe in the strength and resilience of the human spirit." With a final, desperate effort, Liam broke free of Krax's grip and delivered a devastating blow to the warlord's head. Krax staggered back, his eyes widening in shock and pain. Liam pressed his advantage, raining down a flurry of strikes that drove the Krator leader to his knees. As Krax struggled to rise, Liam stood over him, his weapon leveled at the warlord's head. "It's over, Krax," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and determination. "Surrender now and I'll spare your life." For a moment, Krax seemed to consider the offer, his eyes darting back and forth between Liam and his fallen soldiers. Then, with a roar of defiance, he lunged for a nearby console and slammed his fist down on a large, red button. Alarms blared throughout the ship as a computerized voice announced the activation of a self-destruct sequence. Krax laughed maniacally, his eyes gleaming with madness. "If I can't have this world, then no one can," he screamed. "Die with me, human, and know the futility of your struggle." Liam's eyes widened in horror as he realized the implications of Krax's actions. The command ship was set to explode, and the resulting blast would devastate the surrounding area, killing countless Vanner and Krator alike. He had to act fast if he hoped to prevent a catastrophe. With a speed born of desperation, Liam raced to the ship's control panels, his fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls as he sought to override the self-destruct sequence. The Vanner soldiers, seeing his intent, rallied to his side, using their own knowledge of Krator technology to assist in the effort. As the countdown ticked away, Liam and his team worked feverishly, sweat pouring down their faces as they battled against time itself. With mere seconds to spare, they succeeded in disabling the self-destruct mechanism, the alarms falling silent as the ship's systems returned to normal. In the aftermath of the battle, Liam stood amidst the wreckage of the bridge, his chest heaving with exertion and relief. The Krator officers, seeing the defeat of their leader and the failure of his final gambit, threw down their weapons and surrendered, their will to fight broken at last. News of the victory spread like wildfire across Eloria, sparking new hope and determination in the hearts of the Vanner resistance. With their command structure shattered and their leader defeated, the remaining Krator forces quickly capitulated, their occupation of the planet coming to an end after months of brutal fighting. In the days that followed, Liam was hailed as a hero by the Vanner people, his name spoken with reverence and gratitude. They marveled at the strength and courage of this strange alien warrior who had risked everything to save their world from destruction. But for Liam, the true victory lay not in the accolades or the honors bestowed upon him, but in the knowledge that he had made a difference. That through his actions, he had upheld the highest ideals of humanity, compassion, self-sacrifice, and an unyielding commitment to justice and freedom. As he prepared to return to his own universe, Liam looked out over the newly liberated cities of Eloria, their spires gleaming in the sunlight. He knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult as the Vanner worked to rebuild their shattered world and forge a new future for themselves. But he also knew that they would not have to face those challenges alone. For the human spirit once awakened could never be extinguished. It would endure as it always had through the darkest of times and the most desperate of struggles. And in the end, it would triumph as it had on Eloria, a shining beacon of hope and inspiration for all who looked to the stars and dreamed of a better tomorrow. With a final farewell to his Vanner comrades, Liam stepped through the shimmering portal that would carry him back to his own reality. But he carried with him the memories of his time on Eloria and the knowledge that he had been part of something greater than himself. Something that would echo through the ages, a testament to the indomitable power of the human spirit.